Hallelujah, Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah. Please be seated. You people are weird. Do you know that it's a Saturday night on a long weekend? Do you know that about an hour and a bit ago you were hanging out by a fire outside underneath a large cross? Do you know you sat in darkness for about 30, 40 minutes listening to old ancient texts from the Hebrew Scriptures in candlelight while you listened to cantors chant psalms and canticles? What the heck are you doing here? You don't have to be able to quote obscure passages from Zephaniah and Ezekiel like Nate can to be a church nerd. You don't. You can be a church nerd just because you love the ritual, you love to be with Christian community, you love to take a Saturday night on your long weekend and join us here in the pews at Transfiguration. You're what I call a keener. Priests like keeners. And you know, we hear a story in the gospel text about some women keeners who were really into ritual as well. Mary and Salome brought spices to the tomb. And you know, I'm not sure they knew what they were doing there either, as some of you might have had moments, thoughts tonight or some other time during Holy Week. I'm not sure they knew what they were doing either, because as they said to one another, who's going to move this stone away? They were going to perform a ritual act that, for all intents and purposes, there was no way they would be able to perform, because they wouldn't be able to get access to Jesus' body. They too deeply desired to be with one another and to be with their Lord in the very early hours of a Sunday morning. When I was growing up, I loved the Easter Vigil. My dad was confirmed at one, and in the tradition I grew up in, the Easter Vigil was a packed house. It was the pinnacle of the church year. Everyone came to that service because it was the first moment of the resurrection. And I'll tell you, when I became an Anglican, and I was a student at the time, and I was asked to preach at the Easter Vigil, I thought to myself, what an honor. My priest has that much faith in me that he's asked me to preach at the largest service of the year. It wasn't until the service started and I saw about 22 people there. In our tradition, it's not the best attended service of the year. It may still be theologically the pinnacle, but I'm not sure we always treat it like that, but you do. You weird people who showed up on the Saturday night of a long weekend to gather and proclaim that Christ is risen. You get it. You'd think that with all the disciples Jesus had, with Peter and James and John and all those others who went along with him, that there may have been a few more people at the tomb that night. But they too were few in number. There was just a couple of them who got to bear witness to the first fruits of a new creation. And when they arrived, that stone had been rolled away. When they arrived, they came to hear very good news. That the dead man they were looking for was not among them, but he had risen. But he was not there. The angel before them said that he had gone into Galilee, and to go and tell the other disciples that he would meet them there, that he had gone ahead of them, that although this great work was done, there would still be more to do, that they still were invited to follow him. We gather on Easter night. We gather to hear the new words of the resurrection, to experience and bear witness to what has happened here. But our story doesn't end in this space, because he has gone ahead of us and has asked us to meet him in Galilee. Galilee in our workplaces, Galilee at our dinner tables, Galilee in hospitals and shelters, Galilee in the places we might not expect to find him. Galilee in shelters and in mosques and synagogues. Galilee in places where Jesus wants to be known and wants us to join him there. Christ has risen. And you, few, bear witness to that good news. But he has invited you to follow him out into a place called Galilee. A place where others don't know it yet. And so on this Easter night, I say, Alleluia, Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Alleluia.